Ah, yes, come gather round the hearth, my friends, and I will tell you the tale of a film that almost never was. A quintessential Christmas classic that nearly missed millions of small screens. A film that was saved by a mystical glowing box, humbug critics, and the power of poor copyright management. This is the story of It's a Wonderful Life. Our story begins in 1939 with a humble man named Philip Van Doren Stern. Little Philip had written a lovely story called The Greatest Gift and wanted to share it with the world. A story about how it's not your job or money that makes the holidays merry, but your friends and family. And the greatest gift is life itself, and not being in an existential purgatory where you watch your friends and family live on as if you never existed. But no one would publish his story, so in 1943, he penned his tale into a 24-page Christmas card that he sent all of his closest friends and family, thus spreading another great gift, which is homework. And they loved it! They even shared it with their friends and family. And it even made its way to the desk of RKO Pictures. RKO Pictures was a big movie company that had distributed such amazing films as King Kong in 1933, Citizen Kane in 1941, and Notorious B.I.G. in 1946. They saw a lot of potential in his story about petty theft and suicide, so they bought the rights from him for $10,000. And with this story in hand, they brought all of their best writers from across the land, including Bryan Cranston from that Trumbo movie no one saw. But none of them could make something work. And so there it sat for 2 long years, until a young man named Frank Capra found it. Capra had just arrived from making documentary and training films for our boys in World War II. And with a newly minted contract for 9 films with RKO, this abusive masterpiece was the perfect first film. So he bought the film and 3 scripts that they had been working on for $10,000 from RKO, and he got to work. Capra based this new film on the small town of Seneca Falls in New York State. He cast all the biggest stars he could get his hands on, and made the film a cheery, happy, Twilight Zone horror where you get nothing in life but the sweat from your own brow and the responsibility of your tribe, and when all seems lost, an angel will guilt trip you into not killing yourself. The reviews were mixed. The New York Times said, "The weakness of this film from this reviewer's point of view is the sentimentality of it. It's a illusory concept of life. Mr. Capra's nice people are charming, his small town is a quite beguiling place, and his pattern for solving problems is most optimistic and facile. But somehow, they all resemble theatrical attributes rather than average realities." And the audience was split. Some echoed the humbug attitude of the New York Times, while others enjoyed the positivity of Capra's vision, especially after World War II. And I personally think a third secret opinion, but I'll never tell. But Capra wanted all eyes on his breakout feature, so his production company, Liberty Films, painted the town in advertisements for his masterpiece, begging for an Oscar. Jimmy Starr even wrote, "If I were an Oscar, I'd elope with It's a Wonderful Life, lock, stock, and barrel the night of the Academy Awards." All eyes were on his adorably depressing film for the 1946 Academy Awards, and it was nominated for the Best Picture, Director, Actor, Film Editing, Sound Recording, and Technical Achievement. But it only won for Best Technical Achievement for Simulated Snowfall. Years later, George Lucas would do the same for a small indie film about space or whatever. I don't watch nerd. Some even say It's a Wonderful Life would have won a Best Picture if they had released it a year later in 1947. But the decision was made, the damage was done, and the team moved on. It's a Wonderful Life would sit gathering dust for years, changing hands as Liberty Films was bought by Paramount, selling the story to M&A Alexander in 1955, including the film, story rights, score, syndication, and the original nitrate film print. Few people thought about it, and even fewer were taking its message to heart. Until 1974. 28 years later, when a clumsy clerk at the National Telefilm Association forgot to renew the copyright to the film. You see, under the 1909 Act, the copyright holder must renew their copyright 28 years after filing it, and NTA had forgotten. The only one that had remembered to renew their copyright was good old Philip Van Doren Stern, who renewed the story's copyright in 1971, which is different from the film's copyright under US copyright law, Ain't government fun, kids? Philip Van Dorenstern had the rights to the story, but the film rights were with NTA for the film company. So they renewed them differently. So you could pay the rights for the story, but now the film rights were in the public domain because they didn't renew them. So if you wanted to play the movie, you'd have to pay the story rights, but they're less than if you had to pay the film rights. So by the power of bureaucratic bullshit, this once forgotten movie was now in the hands of the public. And something very interesting happened that winter. As television stations pondered what films and shows they should use to fluff up their holiday lineup, It's a Wonderful Life fell right into their laps. Every channel was given this gift to play to their heart's content. And what happened then? Well, in Hollywood, they say, the TV execs' wallets grew 3 sizes that day. And the networks did still have to pay, but for far less than other films on the way. Like they had to pay for the story copyright, but not the film copyright. Right? And what came next was unimaginable. The world was awestruck, dumbfounded, aghast by this charming yet spicy tale of suicide, banking, and wingless angels. Frank Capra was shocked. "It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen," he said. The film has a life of its own now. I can look at it like I had nothing to do with it. I'm like a parent whose kid grows up to be president. I'm proud, but it's the kid who did the work. I didn't even think of it as a Christmas story when I first ran across it. I just liked the idea. For the next 20 years, It's a Wonderful Life would become a staple of the holiday season. Where other films were reserved to certain channels and networks, It's a Wonderful Life was welcome to all. It wasn't until 1996 that NBC would win the distribution rights to the film. But the magic was already out there. Thousands of children grew up with George Bailey dangling off that bridge and the silly angel Clarence that would transport him into a Lovecraftian nightmare. In 1990, the US Library of Congress would deem the film culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. They hadn't decided which yet. AFI would give it the 3rd place position for the best fantasy film of all time. And in Seneca Falls, every year they have an It's a Wonderful Life festival to celebrate the film. And in 2008, the New York Times would call it a terrifying, asphyxiating story about growing up and relinquishing your dreams, of seeing your father driven to the grave before his time, of living among bitter, small-minded people. It's a story of being trapped, of compromising, of watching others move ahead and away, of becoming so filled with rage that you verbally abuse your children, their teacher, and your oppressively perfect wife. So no matter who you are, or what brings you Christmas delight, you can probably expect this film on your TV tonight. From all of us here at FrameForge, Merry Christmas to all, and to all, go subscribe.